So just a bit of strumming, playing,
Yeah,
kind
just a
of.
bit of strumming is awesome.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, hello and welcome back to Surgery 101. I'm Jonathan White. I'm a general surgeon here at the Royal Alexandra Hospital in Edmonton. And today we've got a video for you on the topic of wellness, self-care, and a little bit on the topic of music as well with Dr. Grant Kennedy. So, welcome to Surgery 101, Dr. Kennedy.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you. You're coming to us from Calgary.
Coming to you from kind of cooler, rainy Calgary today.
Yeah, excellent. It's the summertime apparently. Somebody told me it's the summertime. So maybe just to start off, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Tell us how you became a doctor. Tell us about what your current practice is.
So I'm currently an emergency physician at the Rockyview Hospital in Calgary, and originally from Manitoba. Parents were teachers, grandparents were farmers. Eventually worked my way back into school after taking a break after high school and playing music for a while. Yeah, when I got back into university, I found myself sort of geared towards sort of the physiology, anatomy courses. Ended up with a kinesiology degree and went back to med school in Manitoba and then back out west here for residency and beyond.
All right. And where's your current practice?
So I'm at the Rockyview Hospital emergency department.
Okay, and how long have you been in practice at the moment?
So I'm just finishing my 11th year. I have no idea where the time went, but
So you're kind of you're a seasoned emergency room veteran then, been in it for 11 years.
I guess so. Yeah, it seems weird to say that, but I suppose so. I got my 10-year AHS mug,
Okay.
a year and a half ago, and so that's when it really struck home.
Yeah, I've been in practice what 15 years now, and I don't feel like I don't feel like it. Like it doesn't. It seems like a blur, you know. Like I remember being this medical student and I remember being this resident when I was training, but now apparently, if you look at me inside my group, I am, apart from one person, I think I'm the most senior person in the group. We've recruited all these younger people now. And it's a bit uncomfortable to have people looking at you thinking, gosh, that's somebody who's pretty senior. Like I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. And sometimes I don't, you know.
It's an odd moment in your career when you realize that people are looking to you as one of the senior people in the department, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of odd and it's kind of frightening. So I wanted to ask you your opinion on burnout. There's been a lot of talk recently about burnout in physicians, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what are your thoughts or experience around burnout?
Well, I think it's a major issue for sure, and has been. I mean, it has been for a long time in our profession. I think on a positive end, we're finally getting to the point where we are recognizing that it is an issue, and particularly, the pandemic has really highlighted that for sure. So, recognizing the problem is the beginning to sort of protecting ourselves moving forward and creating better spaces for ourselves to work in.
Yeah, I think I remember when I went to medical school. So I went to Queen's University in Belfast, 1987, and graduated in 1993. I don't think a single time in that 5 years, 6 years of medical school, they didn't talk about burnout at all. Like it was this idea that you were the doctor and you'd go in and look after patients and you'd be altruistic and you do your best the whole time, and kind of you just work for your whole career and that would be it and would be awesome. You wouldn't really encounter any problems. And I don't think that's true. I mean, there is, I guess, do you think there are certain aspects of being a doctor that are injurious to you, that injure you, that are harmful in some way, that are negative?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, just the what we do to ourselves in terms of our sleep habits, and the amount of insomnia that the rates of insomnia in our profession are likely sky high. But then there's what we see on the job, right, as well, and it's really hard not to take that home with you at times. And so, for sure, there are things that are injurious about our job, as you put it, and it's important to recognize the effect that that has on us, and what we can do to help ourselves through those moments.
Yeah, there's a famous quote from like surgical history of a surgeon who said that every surgeon in the world carries around a small graveyard in his back pocket of the operations that didn't go very well. Like this it's filled with kind of bitterness and regret. Like I can remember, operations that I've done or people who died on the table or terrible trauma cases that I saw, and I'll probably remember them till my dying day. They're kind of burned on me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all have those for sure. There's lots of, you know, I mean, it is amazing what hits you at certain times, and certain cases really strike you. I will always live with sort of the visions of one of the child abuse cases that we had in our trauma bay, and the length of time it took me to recover from that emotionally. I mean, I still, when I think about it, I get emotional. So
Yeah.
um, there's that stuff we carry with us through our careers for sure.
I think maybe as you get deeper into your career, certainly I'm probably in the mid. I don't want to admit it to anybody, but I'm probably in the middle portion of my career now, I think. And I kind of look back at the younger version of myself and think, how the hell did he do that stuff? Like, how the hell did he do that horrible case or get through that? And it didn't seem to affect him because it's starting to affect me now, as you get a bit older.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, well, and when you start your career, you're running on adrenaline and just in a sense, to some extent, you're happy to be part of the team and going into it. But then as the years wear on, you realize what you're doing to yourself, and yeah, it's important to recognize that and it's yeah, important to recognize it and important to seek help and to talk to others and stuff to help us through.
Yeah. So maybe on that topic, tell us a bit about your thoughts on kind of wellness and self-care. It's almost like the antidote to burnout, maybe. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hugely important to our health and to ensuring that we can stay in our careers and our positions, taking care of ourselves. Because if you can't take care of you have to take care of yourself so that we can take care of others. You have to be in a positive state to do so. So it's hugely important, and yeah, I think just. Um, it's important, and it's important to ensure that it is a priority that we carve out those moments for ourselves for self-care as well, or it just doesn't get done.
Yeah, and I remember, and again, this was this kind of younger version of myself. I remember thinking, I'm not the one who needs the care, right? Like I'm the doctor. It's the patients who need the care. What are you talking about this whole self-care thing? And I think we have to get away from that. I mean, personally, I'm starting to think now burnout is a normal response to a medical career. And if you're not burning out or you're not having some part of the burnout experience, you're probably not really in touch with your inner emotions, like you're probably in some form of denial here. So I think if you come from that position to say, you got to be aware that this is something that's probably going to happen to you at some point in your career, self-care then becomes really important because you've got to actually take some time for yourself and kind of renew yourself and kind of feed yourself almost to keep yourself going through this long career because it's like I think a medical career is not a sprint. Started my career, I was running so fast you would have thought it was a sprint. It's really more of a marathon. Like you got to keep this going for a long time. So it means every so often you're going to have to stop and recharge and drink the energy drink and have a little, cereal bar or something, and kind of refresh yourself and keep going. So what are the things you do in terms of that wellness self care piece? How do you take care of yourself?
I mean, a big part for sure is, I mean, my big thing is music, and so a big part for me is music and songwriting, and that has really been my outlet. I mean, I do other things. I exercise as well, of course, but music is really the thing that I lean on to sort of take me away and allow me to refocus and recharge.
So can you tell us a bit more about that? Like, how did you get into music? How did you start playing? How did you learn? Where did it come from in your life?
I was surrounded by music right from the get-go. My parents sing and play. My grandparents sing and play. I remember the family Christmases gathered around a piano singing songs together. And even to this day, I actually still play music with my dad who's approaching 80 and my brother. And so it's always been a big part of my life. And songwriting has come with that as well. I just hopefully my songwriting has improved over the years. I definitely wrote some bad songs back in the day, but it's just it's something that I can really throw myself into, and really it allows me to just focus on something besides the job and the sort of the task at hand in creating a song and working away at it. And so that's what I do to sort of remove myself, I guess, emotionally from the job and to regroup.
And were you able to keep it going right the way through your career, or were there any times when medicine got in the way?
Well, yeah, so there was, unfortunately, I allowed it to happen essentially, but it was that time period in medical school and residency where things just got so busy that I put the guitar down and I regret doing so and eventually picked it up again and I'm happy to have found it once more.
So was there a turning point for you? Like, was there a point where you said, I need to pick the guitar up again? Like, what was it that kind of that brought you back to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a number of things for sure. One thing happened was the just the birth of my firstborn child daughter. I wanted to write her a song, something that she could carry with her through life, and so I was inspired to pick up the guitar again just for that purpose alone. But then, sort of the positive byproduct of that is that I also rediscovered just how it's kind of like a cathartic experience, writing songs about your personal experience, and that has helped me, at the end of a stressful shift, to come home and as say, instead of talking about your day, writing about it, essentially, So. So yeah, so those are kind of. I mean, it was my daughter, I think, that originally got me into the thought of writing her song that got me to pick it up again. But I've really enjoyed the process of writing songs about my life experience really since as well.
And how do you find time to fit it in as when you're a busy doctor?
Yeah, it's definitely. I need to do better for sure in that regard. I'm not good at scheduling it in, and my wife is also an emergency physician. So with two shift workers and three young kids, it can be hard to schedule it in. But there's a term I came across recently called revenge procrastination, which is taking those hours at the end of the day when the kids are asleep and just like I'm not going to bed. These hours are for me basically, and so it tends to be at that point where I'll pick up the guitar and start playing and writing music.
Yeah, I think probably one of the most common things I hear from my physician colleagues is they express the wish and they say, well, I'm going to do this, but I'll do it at some point in the future, right? I'll pick up this hobby again, or I'll do this, or I'll do that, and I'll do it when things are quieter, or I'll do it after I retire or something, right? And that time never comes.
Mm.
So, and it's quite sad actually. You've got this thing you really want to do to kind of keep yourself alive, to kind of feed your inner self, but you never get around to it because all these other things get in the way. So I know I play. I'm learning a little bit of clawhammer banjo, and I'm in a local ukulele circle. And I was telling my neighbor, I'm in this ukulele circle, and she said, "Wow, you're living your best life instead of just talking about being like playing musical instruments and like having music actually be there in your life. You're actually doing it. Like every Monday night you go to this thing and you get together with the people. We've been doing it on Zoom and everything for the last year or so with the COVID-19 pandemic. So I wanted to make the point, there's a difference between thinking you might do something and talking about doing something and actually doing it. um
Absolutely. And
so
it's so easy to make excuses in life about why we haven't done it yet, right? And
yeah.
but you got to live in the moment, and that's a big part I think of self-care as well. Is like just being present in the moment, and really, as you say, just making sure that you're taking the time for yourself to do those things that will make you feel good.
And I think I find it useful to kind of like engineer my home environment to help me do good things. Like apparently, if in your kitchen you have a bowl with fresh fruit in it, you'll probably eat more fresh fruit because you see it all the time, right? It's just sitting there. Oh, there's an apple, I'll have an apple, right? So when I come down in the morning, my banjo is sitting there in plain sight. Like I see it, and sometimes I pick it up. I'm waiting for the kettle to boil for my coffee or something, right? And I'll just play the banjo for a couple of minutes. It's not a practice session, right? It's just there. I'm just kind of noodling on it for a minute or two, simply because if I put it in its case somewhere, I'm not
Yeah.
going to see it. And then I've got to think about, gosh, where's the banjo? I've got to open the case up. I've got to kind of get it ready to go and stuff, right? And that takes too long, and nobody has the cognitive effort to do that because it's a formal activity. But it was just sitting there in your living room. You can just pick it up as you walk past.
Honestly, I think that was I lived the exact same moment. I did the exact same thing because I battled with like, oh, the humidity. It's supposed to be kept in this humidified case and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, but then I never pick it up. So I did the exact same thing. I just, to heck with humidity. I just left my guitar out on its stand so that I could just pick it up whenever,
Yeah.
and it's been much better as a result. So
I was at just last weekend. I was at an online banjo camp, this Midwest banjo camp, and it was all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, actually, all online. And there's a guy called Joe Newbury who teaches there, and Joe Newbury did a session called "Just Hit the Dang Thing." Right, like stop worrying about what you're doing with your hand, and like just hit the thing and make
yeah.
some sounds, and then you can move on from there. So tell us a bit about your like your journey in music. Like who's influenced you? Who are your favorite artists? What do you like to listen to? What do you like to play?
I mean, when I pick up a guitar, usually I'm into the sort of the creative mode and just trying to find chords that I like, that sound nice together, and I start working on putting a song together. I don't play a lot of cover songs, but I do sometimes. And Del Barber is a big influence for sure. He's a singer songwriter out of Manitoba and a family guy and someone who's relatable to me. And the Milk Carton Kids as well are a big sort of influence as well. In fact, one of the inspiring moments as well for sort of refining the guitar was the Milk Carton Kids on Austin City Limits. So definitely it was just one of those performances that just sort of grabs you, and so like listening to them as well.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe I could put you on the spot. Would you like to play something for us?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah.
Right. So I'll go on mute.
Okay. So I'll play a little bit of a song called "The Self You Used to Know," which is a song that I wrote early on in the pandemic. Started writing it and kind of finished it midway through, basically. And it was kind of like, it became my mantra of sort of this like, stay positive, stay strong. And the chorus particularly. So "The Self You Used to Know," I'll give you a little portion. Longest days never really seem to drift away. I keep holding on to yesterday, just holding on too long. Westward ho, past places that you used to know. They don't recognize you anymore, 'cause those days are come and gone. But tonight, breathe slow and take everything that's wrong and let it go. 'Cause it's high time you light it close and you find the self that you used to know. And you find the self that you used to know. hope you find the self that you used to know.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
So, and you've done some recording and stuff as well, right?
Yeah, I just put out sort of my second EP early January, and it was the majority of the songs actually were written during the pandemic. It's called Away, so yeah, a little plug for myself, I guess. It's out there on the streaming networks.
And and you don't think you'd ever go like full time musician?
Um, I think at this stage of life, I'm resigned to being a stay-at-home dad songwriter with a day slash night job in the emergency department.
I think that sounds very sensible. You probably make more money in the emergency room, I would suspect.
I can guarantee you there's no money in streaming these days, anyways.
I was talking to someone at the banjo camp recently, and he went. He tells a story about when he was 18, he took a bus to Nashville. Like
Mm.
he just said, I'm going to be a musician. He just took a bus to Nashville. He didn't know anybody, and he just arrived in Nashville with his banjo and went from there. That's a scary thing to do, you know.
That is scary for sure. But you know what? You're 18.
Yeah,
Responsibilities, no dependents at that point.
go
Or
for it.
like not, anyways. Yeah.
So,
Uh,
I wanted to finish up with maybe a little bit of advice from you then. So, like thinking about this whole wellness self-care thing, do you think like what do you think medical schools should be doing about this? What do you think healthcare systems like Alberta Health Services should be doing about this? Because we need to keep our healthcare workers well, right? So, what's your advice to medical schools and systems?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question for sure. I think, first of all, we need to talk about it more for sure, and that starts in medical school. And I think, just educating that, as we talked about earlier, like it's bound to happen in your career. You're going to feel burned out at some point, and so I think talking about it is a key factor. And I think making sure there's outlets for medical students as well, and resources to access residents as well, and staff, hey, as well, for sure, the staff level. Um, there's that. There is, we did talk about. Fortunately, schedules have changed, over time. I can't really comment right now to where things are at in terms of medical students and residents, but I know for sure things have improved from the days when there was no end to the hours that one could work. I remember doing, hour 30, and having a textbook thrown at me in a learning session as I was falling asleep the next day. Um, I remember sleeping in a broom closet actually on call one night as well, because there was just no sleep, and it was too the way the call rooms were set up in the hospital, that it was too far to walk back, and the rounds were going to start. So I had like 20 minutes to sleep. So I literally slept in a broom closet on the ward. So fortunately, I think those days are gone in terms of the scheduling, but we need to be mindful going forward of scheduling, and that includes, at the staff level, what we're doing to ourselves in terms of our scheduling. It's I would argue it's always better to be overhired than underhired, for sure. That's a good starting point, for sure, right? Because you need people to step in and cover for you, and you can't do that when you're underhired. So that's another way of combating burnout. And yeah, for the med students, align yourself with positive people, people that care about you. You're going to need to lean on people throughout your journey, and support you throughout, and that's a big thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the I would like to see medical schools and systems talk about this a bit more and kind of normalize the discussion a bit more. Like you hear about somebody taking time off, and it's like it's abnormal, right? It's like, well, they burned out, they must have been weak, or they mustn't have been strong enough, or they must have had like a nervous breakdown or a midlife crisis or something, right? I think it's actually normal to have kind of phases to your career, like working a certain way in the early part of your career, working a different way in the middle part of your career, and working a different way when you come to the end of your career as well. And also, it's perfectly normal. We talked about it, running a marathon
Yeah,
earlier on. It's perfectly normal to take breaks sometimes. Like to
absolutely.
say, I need a bit of a rest here because it's a very tiring thing to do work like this.
Absolutely. And I don't know who coined the term, but it's okay not to be okay, like it is absolutely the norm, and just on a personal level, just having gone through, the pandemic as with an administrative position and working a full-time line, I recognize within myself, like I am not going to last like this. I was absolutely burning out. It was affecting my mental health, affecting the relationship I was having with my family as well. And I think it was a huge turning point for me because I'm in a much better space now, having relieved myself of some of the extra duties that I had from an administrative perspective, but also stepped down my line because I needed to. As you say, it's a marathon. It's not a race, and I love my job. I love the people I work with, but I also want to be doing it 10 years from now still, right? And so I found, I had to get over that thought that we probably all have, like where we feel like it's a failure to ask for help or a failure to acknowledge that, hey, I can't keep up this pace. It's not a failure. We all go through it, and we'll come out on the other end stronger if we recognize that hey, it's okay to ask for help and to take breaks when we need to. So as I say, I'm personally in a much better space than I was a year ago by a long shot, as a result of recognizing that and doing what needed to be done to take care of myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to recognize you can't be all things to all people. Like you're not able to say yes to all the opportunities that come up, and you have to say no to certain things. So I think kudos to you for saying, I did this administrative thing for a while, and then I realized I was just overcommitted, and I had to step back from it. I think more people should do that, because otherwise you end up being overcommitted and kind of like half doing all the things that you're doing, including like your personal life as well, right? You're so busy doing all these things, you're kind of dropping the ball on some of the really important things at home. And I know I had a colleague of mine who took a break. This is a few years ago now, and he said, I felt like I was a bad doctor, I was a bad administrator, I was becoming a bad dad and like a bad husband as well. And at some point I realized I have to stop. Like I've got to like blow the whistle and stop for a minute, and then refocus on the things that are important to me, and then kind of reorganize my life to make sure I'm getting those things done. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on being dreadfully unhappy with all the different things all the different balls I'm trying to juggle.
Yeah, yeah, and just, I mean, to your point too, it also another part of it is we're so critical of ourselves, right? And it starts with being less critical of who we are as people. It's okay, we're not perfect people, and we can't be everything to everybody all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have a weekly morbidity and mortality meeting where we sit down and discuss complications and stuff, right? We discuss the one operation where things went badly. We don't even take a second to high five over the 99 operations which went without a hitch, right? We focus on the negative and say, oh, that was terrible, we must do better. We're so critical of each other. We confess our sins. So I think we need to have, somehow our culture is quite negative in that way, and sometimes I think we have to be slightly more positive and support each other a little bit more, as opposed to kind of chipping at each other the whole time.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I feel personally there's no quicker way to burnout than working in a toxic work environment.
Mm.
And so there's self-care, which is important, but what can we do to help others as well, right? And being positive and being there for our colleagues and asking how their day is going and yeah, and not being confrontational and anything we can do to create a positive work environment for our colleagues will go a long way as well to prevent them from burning out as well, right? So we're all in together. We're all on the same team, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that. But yeah,
Yeah, I was chatting to a friend recently, and I said to them, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm fine. And I said, are you really okay? Because you don't seem to be okay. And she looked at me and then she said, no, I'm not actually fine. Like I'm
hmm
not okay. So I think we have to have those conversations a little bit more. Like if you're actually not okay, you're allowed to tell somebody about that, right? You shouldn't be carrying that weight by yourself. And there's a friend I've worked with, lady, who's a cognitive psychologist, and she says, pull your shirt up and check whether you have a belly button or not. Because if you have a belly button, you're probably a person. And if you're a person, you're not a robot and you're not a donkey, and you weren't just put on this earth to work the whole time. Right. So I think we have to have a little bit more, and I think this is the thing that I struggle with sometimes. We have to have a little bit more compassion for each other and also for ourselves. Like, give yourself a break sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good word.
So I wanted to finish off with tips for medical students. Like, if you're a first year medical student coming into this crazy profession, what are your tips on avoiding some of these problems? What are your tips on kind of prioritizing your own self-care so that you can get to the end of the marathon successful?
Yeah, that's another great question for sure. I think hold on to the things that made you who you are in terms of just even getting into medical school. Don't lose those things that make you the person that you are and that bring joy in your life. So make time for that stuff throughout medical school. It can be hard to do, but it is really important. So whether it's music or meditation or whatever it is you're into, just hold on to that and hold on to it dearly and make sure that it remains a part of your life. That's a big part of it for sure. I think also just recognizing that you're going to go through ups and downs throughout medical school. You're going to make lots of sacrifices, but it's important to recognize when you are burning out and when you need to lean on someone, because it's going to happen at some point, and it's okay when it does. And just going back to my previous point on aligning yourselves with positive individuals inside and outside of medical school as well, right? Just making sure that you've got a circle of people or one person, whatever it is, that someone you can lean on and for support, because you'll definitely need it. Yeah, those are kind of like, and it just going back to, like, guess the last one would be like, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So just recognize those things within yourself that will get you through the down points that you're going to inevitably experience, and lean on people when you need to.
Right. Well, thank you very much. This has been an awesome conversation. I've really enjoyed the time we've had together. And again, thank you for playing us your song.
Thank you for having me. It was really nice meeting you over Zoom, as one has done throughout the pandemic, I guess, the meeting form. But thank you very much for having me. It's a really important topic, and kudos to you guys for bringing this topic to light.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much to the awesome Dr. Grant Kennedy.
Thank you.